Battlefield 2042 had one of the roughest launches in gaming history, but 4 seasons and a year and a half later, maybe it's time for a second chance. The good news is that regardless of platform, you can give this game a go for free. As of the making of this video, Battlefield 2042 is included with PlayStation Plus Essential until April 4th, and is available with Game Pass via EA Play. We're taking a look on PlayStation 5. As for where I stand with Battlefield as a franchise, I've played an unhealthy amount of 3, 4, Hardline and 1 over the years. I've also played through the campaign of Bad Company 2. I'm not a super fan, but I've enjoyed enough Battlefield to know that I love it. I'm even one of the psychopaths that liked Hardline. As for 2042, I bought it for £10 back in August and have been playing it on and off since. We cover a new game every week, so if you like what we do here, consider subscribing. And with that, we're giving Battlefield 2042 a second chance and letting you know if it's worth your time. Battlefield 2042 has come a long way since release. For instance, it's now an actual Battlefield game. Classes are finally back, and the specialists have been divided up into classes. I think that this is the best middle ground between classes and the specialists DICE tried to push at release. Every specialist has a bit of gear and an ability to set themselves apart from the field, but the distinction between assault, engineer, support and recon is still there. Weapons are not restricted by class, and there's a lot to play around with here. Nothing felt crazily unbalanced, but in the chaos of a Battlefield match, this can be a lot harder to spot. I really love that you can have a few attachments ready to switch out on the fly, as it allows for adaptation without redeployment. This is simply a great feature. Mode-wise, there's quite a lot here, but the quality varies massively. For me, Battlefield has always been about rush, and more recently, breakthrough. These modes do a great job of condensing the action into choke points and creating a lot of chaos. Breakthrough was knocked down from 128 players to 64, but you can still play 128 player Breakthrough via Portal, and it is insanity. Regular Breakthrough is less insane, but it's still a lot of fun, and I feel that this is where Battlefield 2042 is at its best. Rush is a measly 32 players, so matches can feel a bit barren at times, but it's still Rush and it's still fun. Conquest has never really been my cup of tea, but it is a solid mode. I like the change to have sectors composed of a few flags rather than just one. It keeps the action a bit more spread out and minimises dead space in matches. Team Deathmatch is here, and it's just fine. Matches don't have any sort of flow, but if you just want to hop in and shoot some dudes, nobody will yell at you for not playing the objective here. Alternatively, if you want to jump in and just shoot some dudes, you can play a few of the modes with bots, which is a really nice element. It means that when the player count eventually dies off, you can still jump into Battlefield 2042 and have a good time. Hazard Zone has been abandoned by the devs, and frankly just isn't very fun. You drop in, grab some data cores, and extract. These maps feel far too big, so there's a lot of running around until you find some action, and the gameplay loop itself is just very surface level. Map design is a bit all over the place. The new seasonal maps are all much better than the launch maps, and the reworked launch maps are better but still not great. The only maps that haven't been reworked are Hourglass and Discarded, and it really shows. These maps feel empty and just lack a lot of distinct flow. Breakaway is playing a lot better now that it's been reworked, but Kaleidoscope is still terrible. Outside of Exposure, there's no map here that I'm really craving to play every time I hop on. Portal mode was where I had the most fun with Battlefield 2042. Is it balanced? Hell no. But player-created content, especially the popular stuff, is always a great change of pace from the regular game, and the addition of older Battlefield maps and weapons in Portal is great for variety. If you want to create your own Portal experience, you need to go through a website, which I find utterly stupid. The online editor is nice and has plenty of options, but I hate that I need to exit the game and pull out a different device to put something together. I should also note that there are still plenty of XP farms, because of course there is. This is a natural endpoint of any player created content, but there are some fun modes in here, mixed in with some actual DICE curated stuff. Like I said, if you want to play 128 player Breakthrough, this is where you do it, and it is a lot of fun. The big problem for me with this game is the feel. Now, Battlefield has never controlled as tightly as something like Call of Duty, but the previous games still felt responsive and fluid in the past. This is not the case with 2042. Walking and running feel fine, but mantling and sliding feel a bit stiff. You'll be doing a lot of running around in this game, and it just never felt quite right. Aiming, frankly, feels terrible on console. Aim assist seems to just be completely broken, in that I found it constantly pushed me past targets instead of guiding me towards them, and the response curve of the controller sticks meant that I was constantly overcorrecting my aim. I spent a lot of time tweaking settings, even watching videos, but I could never get the game to feel as snappy as previous Battlefields. Progression is pretty solid. You have standard leveling to unlock weapons and gear, weapons have attachment unlocks, specialists have some cosmetic unlocks, there is a battle pass that is progressed by challenges, but none of these challenges require much change in playstyle. If you missed past seasons, the weapons have unlock challenges which are relatively simple. Overall, whilst Battlefield 2042 has come a long way, it's still a very average gameplay experience. You do get those Battlefield moments once in a while, but at the end of the day, I'd rather be playing the other Battlefield games. There is a decent amount of variety and fun to be had, but the whole package ranges from slightly above average in some areas to completely boring in others. And we're giving Battlefield 2042 a 3 out of 5 for gameplay as a result. Battlefield 2042 is a very pretty game, and there are a lot of solid art direction choices to facilitate gameplay. Environment design is top notch, every map looks distinct and is wonderful to simply look at. The weather effects add some nice variety when they do pop up. Battles feel insane when they kick off. Explosions and debris fly everywhere, soldiers cry out and bullets whiz by. When everything comes together, the immersion is fantastic. This is aided by some great sound design all around. Soldier animations are also nice and fluid, but can get a little silly in depth. However, DICE knows that in-game UI is important in Battlefield, and so health and ammo boxes are nicely marked, teammates that need reviving have massive icons over their heads, the attachment swap interface is nice and simple to understand, and the overhead map is nice and clear. In a fight, it always feels like I can see all of the information that I need to without it becoming too overbearing. This is a great link of art direction servicing gameplay. Menu UI works well, everything feels nice and easy to navigate, and there's not a lot of button presses to get into menus. The whole interface is nicely themed, but not overdone. The additional skins and weapon skins have remained mostly in theme. There's not a lot of crazy stuff here that will pull you out of the Battlefield universe. I'm glad everything was kept mostly consistent. I do have a few art direction gripes though. First is the OST. There was not a single piece of music that stood out to me here. I'm a little more forgiving in the face of the good sound design, but the OST itself is still pretty bland. Weapon animations also feel a bit rough and floaty. It doesn't feel very satisfying to shoot the guns in Battlefield 2042, and they don't sound as powerful as they feel they should. Reload animations also feel floaty. This is the sort of thing that makes the gameplay feel worse than it actually is. Overall though, Battlefield 2042 is getting a 4 out of 5 for art direction. It is a very pretty game with a lot of care taken to show the player all of the information they need, but some elements could definitely use a little rework. The narrative of Battlefield 2042 is that everything is terrible after climate change, yet everyone seems to be having fun. Admittedly, the more egregious voice lines seem to have been removed from the game, and everyone seems to be taking this whole war a little more seriously, but the echoes of the terrible narrative decisions are still present. Starting off, there is no single player campaign here. If you want a traditional Battlefield tale, then you're out of luck. There is a narrative being told through the seasons that gives some context to the new maps, but it certainly isn't at the forefront. The world building is interesting, but the whole written narrative here just feels weak. The one narrative element Battlefield has always and continues to excel at are the Battlefield moments. The stuff you tell your friends at work the next day. Oh, it was so cool. I jumped off a building in Kaleidoscope and then there was a massive explosion and glass went everywhere. These moments unfortunately felt a lot fewer and far between than in previous Battlefield games, but they do still show up. Overall, Battlefield 2042 is getting a 2 out of 5 for narrative. The world building is somewhat interesting, and the battlefield moments are here, but everything else feels a bit disjointed. Battlefield 2042 is a reasonable content offering, backed by an incredible array of settings, but marred by some technical issues. We covered this in the gameplay, but aim assist seems to be completely broken on console. It just does not work. I also had a lot of smaller bugs, things clipping through walls, out of body experiences, the usual Battlefield jank. Looking online, other players are having other issues. Outside of aim assist, there was nothing game breaking in here, at least for me, but do be aware that Battlefield 2042 is still not technically sound. Content wise, you're getting quite a lot. Conquest, Breakthrough, Rush and Team Deathmatch as main modes. You can also fill out some modes with bots. Portal is essentially infinite player generated content, with some official playlists thrown in. There's plenty of maps, specialists and weapons to play around with, and sure, Hazard Zone is here. In terms of settings, this is one of the best arrays we've ever seen. Strap in, this is going to take a minute. Here's what you can adjust. Crossplay can be enabled or disabled. Control hints, reactive hints, share usage data, show player created content, allow followers, and show XP type for server can all be toggled on or off. There are network widget options. You can set widgets to always appear on top. There are sliders for opacity and position. Network performance bar, grass, damage log, and event grass can all be toggled individually. There is a slider for field of view and an additional slider for vehicle field of view. ADS field of view can be toggled. There is a brightness slider and HDR calibration options if your monitor supports it. Motion blur has a slider, and chromatic aberration and vignette can be toggled. HUD, HUD prompts, control hints, reactive hints, HUD motion, show vehicle seats, and soldier compass can be toggled. There is a slider for camera shake and mount. There are colorblind filters, but you can also adjust the colors of a variety of HUD elements to your liking. You can choose when text chat is visible and adjust opacity. The types of kills that show up in the kill feed can be adjusted, and HUD elements can be scaled. There are sliders for crosshair and crosshair outline opacity. Crosshair color can be adjusted to your liking. There are crosshair thickness options, and crosshair projection can be toggled. Damage numbers can be made visible, and you can adjust the opacity of hit indicators. Hit, headshot, kill, and armor hit indicators can all be set to the color of your preference. You can also toggle show damage type. Soldier and vehicle damage can also have their colors adjusted to your liking. You can adjust vehicle damage thickness. Minimap can be set to rotate with you, and scale can be adjusted. You can set minimap icons to scale with view distance, and set default minimap view distance with additional sliders for view distances and scale. There are further opacity sliders for minimap icons, texture, and background. Even the big map has its own settings, sliders for texture, background, and background blur opacity, and a toggle for the out of combat texture. HUD icons have a plethora of sliders to adjust position, scale, and opacity. There are sliders for master, music, sound effects, and in-game announcer volume. There are both sound configuration and audio mix presets. Hit indicator and in-world radio music can be toggled on and off. Voice chat can be enabled, and there is a slider for volume. A microphone can be set between off and open. There's no push to talk. You can also adjust the microphone threshold. Subtitles can be enabled and have size options. You can toggle a subtitle outline, and there is a background opacity slider. There are preset control schemes and button layouts, or you can completely configure everything to your liking. This is simply wonderful to see. Invert look has multiple separate toggles, and controller vibration can be enabled or disabled. There is a sensitivity slider, soldier look can be inverted, and the field of view options can also be found here. You can adjust aim assist and zoom snap strength. Sprint and aiming controls can also be finely tuned. Parachute auto deploy can be toggled, as can auto grenade throwing. There is also finer control options for reviving teammates and detonating C5. Aiming acceleration has a slider, as does vertical aim ratio. Uniform soldier aiming can be toggled, and coefficient has a slider. Every level of scope zoom has a separate slider for aim sensitivity. Vehicle aiming has a range of sensitivity sliders. Vehicle aim relative controls and boosts also have control toggles. There are plenty of sliders to adjust controller dead zones and max input thresholds. Finally, the accessibility menu lumps all of the accessibility settings into one nice spot, so you don't have to dig through other menus to find them. Every setting also has a nice little description of what it does, and sometimes even a picture to show you what you're changing. This is frankly very impressive. Overall, Battlefield may be having a few issues technically, but the large content offering and the insane array of settings more than earns a 4 out of 5 for specs. Fitting Battlefield games into your free time has always been a bit tough. Matches are long, and Battlefield 2042 is no exception. Matches are going to range from 10 minutes to over 30. It's very team dependent. Be aware that if you have limited free time, you will need to be aware if you're trying to fit in Battlefield games. Hard drive footprint is unfortunately massive. On PS5, DICE is asking for just under 70 gigabytes of your hard drive space, and on Xbox, the install size is even bigger at 78 gigabytes. If you have slow internet or a data cap, this is a tall order. These download sizes are also a solid chunk of current console hard drives. Progression feels decently fast. I was constantly unlocking new stuff, and the Battle Pass progressed at a decent rate. Unfortunately, due to the challenge system, your progression will feel very uneven. You'll go through a period of having new challenges, progressing really fast, and then that progression slows down once you've completed all your challenges. There is a store, because of course there is. Prices are the standard procedure, which means that they're pretty expensive for what you're getting. I do like that there's no store FOMO. You can see all of the bundles and buy what you want, but items are still tied to bundles, and you can buy shortcut packs to unlock actual in-game content at a faster rate. Battlefield has always done this, and I've always hated it. In matches, my time never felt actively wasted. There is a decent skill gap here, and getting better at the game feels rewarding. You progress through most things just by using them, and there's lots to earn. Overall, Battlefield 2042 does ask an inconsistent amount of your time and a lot of your hard drive. It's definitely more of an afternoon session game rather than something you pick up and play for a few matches. Base game progression feels pretty good, but Battle Pass progression feels artificially stilted, and any premium game that has a store loses points in my book. Battlefield 2042 scores a 2 out of 5 on our commitment scale. Battlefield 2042 is just on the cusp of being worth your time. It's like the vanilla ice cream of video games. Sure, there is some fun to be had here, but ultimately, I'd just rather be playing other Battlefield games. Am I happy that DICE is going back to fix the game? Sure, but I'm starting to hate this precedent of releasing games in a terrible state, only to bring them to an average state after a year. It's not just Battlefield, but this is one of the more prominent examples over the last few years, and it's something that generally makes me concerned about these types of games going forward.